Oh, watch out, Mountaineers. It's the meanest critter in the mountains, Ramesses.
You don't want none! You don't want none!
Okay. What's going on, Tar Heel Nation? It is your favorite North Carolinian, Russ the Tar Heel. And it is bowl season, baby, which means we're bowling for Mountaineers. And in this huddle, we're going to discuss the North Carolina Tar Heels matchup against the Big 12's West Virginia Mountaineers in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Game is scheduled for December 27th with a 5:30 p.m. kick on ESPN/ESPN Plus. Now, before we get into the intricate details of this game, let's take a look at Carolina's bowl game history, along with the history of the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Now, this will be the 38th bowl game in Carolina history, with the Heels having a 15-22 record in said bowl games. Carolina's first ever bowl game was a Sugar Bowl date back on January 1st, 1947 against the Georgia Bulldogs that resulted in a 20-10 loss. Carolina's first ever bowl victory was a 35-0 victory over Air Force in the Gator Bowl on December 28th, 1963.
On the move from near midfield. Watch a sensational shot as halfback Willard explodes for 24 yards in slow motion. The Tar Heels are threatening at the Air Force 28. First and 10.
Carolina's longest bowl winning streak was from 1995 to 2001 that saw the Heels win 5 straight. The Heels are currently tied for their longest bowl losing streak with 3, however, and that has occurred a staggering 5 times in Carolina's history. Carolina's last bowl win was in Mack Brown's inaugural 2.0 season that saw Carolina beat the Temple Owls in the Military Bowl 55-13 on December 27th, 2019. And I remember how I really did think, man, I thought we were on the cusp of truly turning a corner. And Coach Mack Brown has been 0-3 in bowl games since. So, that kind of tells you a little bit about where the program is. So this bowl game has been played at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina since 2002. It's been called by a couple of names in the past, to include the Continental Tire Bowl from 2002 to 2004, the Meineke Car Care Bowl from 2005 to 2010, the Belk Bowl from 2011 to 2019, and now the Duke's Mayo Bowl from 2020 to the present. Now, the first game was held on December 28th, 2002, that saw the Virginia Cavaliers beat the number 15 West Virginia Mountaineers 48-22. Now, North Carolina's first appearance in this bowl was December 30th, 2004, in which they were beaten 37-24 by then number 25 Boston College. North Carolina appeared again on December 27, 2008, and lost to the West Virginia Mountaineers 31-30. And that game had a ton of college stars in it. I mean, it featured Pat White, Noel Devine, TJ Yates, Sean Drone, Ryan Houston, Hakeem Nicks, who had 8 receptions for 217 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then you had that infamous behind the back catch. It was only like a 10-yard gain, man, but it was stinking nasty. And then don't forget about names like Greg Little, Dante Williams, Kendrick Burney. Pretty good football teams, if you ask me. But UNC did take the L. Now, North Carolina goes back the next year and loses the number 17 Pitt 19-17. And then finally gets their first win on December 28th, 2013, as the Heels routed the Cincinnati Bearcats 39-17. And everybody remembers that Ryan Switzer was absolutely phenomenal in that game. And then who can forget in Carolina Blue, arguably the worst bowl performance in Carolina football history, as the Heels decided that they just didn't want to play football on December 30th, 2021, and got obliterated by South Carolina 38-21. The Gamecocks used a wide receiver who was like their third or fourth string guy to completely shred the Heels. And it was one of those games that it seems like only Carolina fans have experienced when they watch their team aimlessly wander around the field with no passion and no stinking answers. That game made me want to put holes in my walls, but I'm too mature for that. So Carolina is an astounding 1-4 in this bowl game. And it's in North Carolina. That's crazy to me, dude. So, without further ado, let's get into the nuts and bolts of this game. And we can't do that in 2023 with how everything is going without first looking at all the opt-outs due to preparing for the NFL or transferring. So, according to lineups.com, as of December 18th, the West Virginia Mountaineers will be without the following: running back Justin Johnson Jr., wide receiver Cortez Brom, wide receiver Jeremiah Aaron, wide receiver Jay-Sean Polk, defensive lineman Mike Lockhart, safety Hershey McLaurin, and safety Lance Dixon, all to the transfer portal. Their center, Zach Frazier, their starting center, he will miss the bowl game due to having surgery before the NFL draft. Now, North Carolina, on the other hand, and none of those guys are really significant, if you will, except for, obviously, their starting center, Zach Frazier. North Carolina will be without the following: quarterback Drake May, big. Wide receiver Tez Walker, big. Starting center Corey Gaynor, big. And linebacker Cedric Gray, big, who are declaring for the NFL draft. Miles Murphy has declared for the NFL draft, but he is expected to play in the bowl game. A couple kind of big names, if you will. Wide receiver Tyshawn Chapman, wide receiver Andre Green Jr., tight end Kamari Morales, defensive tackle Kendrick Bingley Jones, and cornerback Tayon Holloway, who was starting basically the whole year, are entering the transfer portal and will not play in the bowl game. Those are guys that got burned, man. From the guys that are declaring for the draft to the guys that are transferring, some of those guys got some good burn. Then you have wide receiver Kobe Paysor, tight end John Copenhaver, cornerback Elijah Huzzy, and safety Will Hardy will miss the bowl game due to injuries. It's unknown if Nate McCullum will even play in this bowl game. These are all guys that have played an intricate part in Carolina's 8-4 record. So Carolina is going to be without a ton of mainstays that they've had this season. So the North Carolina Tar Heels and West Virginia Mountaineers have only met 2 times on the gridiron, and both, ironically enough, were in bowl games. UNC kicked off the matchup between the two teams by beating West Virginia in the 1997 Gator Bowl 20-13. Oscar Davenport had a touchdown pass to Octavius Barnes, and he also rushed one in. They beat him 20-13, and that was actually a really good victory. I think Carolina at the time was number 12. West Virginia was number 25, and good victory for the Heels. The Mountaineers got their payback in 2008, however, when they beat the Heels 31-30 in the Meineke Car Care Bowl, like we just talked about a couple of minutes ago. So let's get into the rubber match, if you will. Now, the West Virginia Mountaineers finished the season with an 8-4 record and finishing 4th in the Big 12. The Mountaineers are led by head coach Neil Brown, who has a 30-29 combined record at West Virginia. West Virginia is averaging 29.4 points per game and giving up 28.5 points per game. West Virginia rushes the ball 63.12% of the time, which is the 6th most in the nation. Hint, hint, wink, wink. And are averaging 5.2 yards per rush, which is good for 14th in the country. They are also allowing 4.7 yards per rush themselves, which is 96th in the nation. 157.4 yards a game, which is 68th in the nation, and 240.7 yards passing, 86th. The Mountaineers' leading passer is 5'11", 202-pound junior quarterback Garrett Green, who has passed for 2,178 yards on the season with 15 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. Now, he's only 135 of 254 passing. That's only good for 53.2% completion percentage, but he has also rushed the ball 111 times for 708 yards and 13 touchdowns. Now, Green obviously is smaller in stature, being listed at 5'11", but he's got pretty good touch on his footballs and good pocket presence. He went for 391 yards, 2 touchdowns, while adding 47 on the ground and 2 rushing touchdowns in what should have been a comeback win against Houston in Houston. So he's capable of lighting it up in the air, but he does a very good job of keeping his eyes downfield when the pocket collapses, and he can throw on the run. Decent athlete that the UNC linebackers are going to have to keep their eyes on to make sure that he doesn't leak out. And you know that that is not necessarily a strong suit of this Carolina defense over the past couple of years. Now, here's where West Virginia's bread and butter lies. The run game. The West Virginia Mountaineers have 3 players with at least 700 yards rushing. We'll start it off with 6'1", 238-pound sophomore running back C.J. Donaldson Jr., who has rushed for 798 yards for an average of 4.7 yards on 171 carries and 11 tutties. Donaldson carries his weight well and has just enough shiftiness to make you look silly. And he's got some big playability as well. Big kid from Miami with Miami speed. So it's going to be a huge test for the Heels bringing him down. And if that big guy ain't enough for you, then you have 5'7", 192-pound freshman Jaheim White, who rushed for 792 yards, averaging 8.2 yards per touch on only 97 carries and 3 touchdowns. I love the little dudes, bro. So I got to give him his props. Guy is literally my size, almost to a T, and he's a baller. That shorter stature makes him extremely difficult to pick up behind that big West Virginia offensive line, and he runs downhill. One cut, and he's gone. And he does not shy away from contact. He's going to finish the run. So I respect that, especially from a littler dude, man. Very different back from Donaldson, but it's like some thunder and lightning type stuff, man. Carolina's going to have the work cut out for him. And then you have the aforementioned Garrett Green, who's rushed for over 700 yards himself. The West Virginia Mountaineers' leading receiver is 6'3", 214-pound senior wide receiver Devin Carter, who has 501 yards on 27 receptions and 2 touchdowns. He's a transfer from NC State, so he's a familiar foe. And we have all the reason in the world to not like him. So we see that West Virginia really likes to run the football a lot. And they have the weapons to cause a ton of damage. Now that we've looked at the villain, let's look at the good guys from North Kakalaki. North Carolina finished the season 8-4 and 7th. It's disgusting to even say 7th in the ACC after starting the season 6-0 and rising to as high as number 10 in the country. It is the second season in a row where Carolina has suffered a late season meltdown. There's literally no way, no other way of putting it. Now, the North Carolina Tar Heels are averaging 34.5 points per game, which is good for 17th in the country, and giving up 28.9 points per game, which is good for 80th in the country. North Carolina is averaging 495.7 yards per game, 5th in the country, and giving up 415.9 yards per game, 101st in the country. The Heels are averaging 4.9 yards per carry, 22nd, and giving up 4.3, 72nd. The North Carolina Tar Heels are led by head coach Mack Brown, who is 107, 72, and 1 all-time at UNC. But he's 38 and 26 in his second stint and 1-3 in bowl games. Now, because Drake May has opted out and is declaring for the NFL draft, we're going to focus on his replacement. And that is 6'1", 200-pound redshirt freshman quarterback Conner Harrell, who was a 3-star prospect in the 2022 class and the 42nd ranked quarterback in the 247 composite. Conner was ranked as the nation's number 10 dual threat quarterback by Rivals and the 23rd best dual threat quarterback according to ESPN. Conner was a first-team All-State, Alabama, and a 2-time state champion, so he's got a good pedigree. Now, Conner's main action came late in the second half of a blowout against Campbell, where he went 4 for 4 for 71 yards and a touchdown, including that huge dot to Chris Culliver in the end zone. He also flashed his athleticism on a 61-yard RPO where he ran away from the corner to score. So he looked pretty good. It's important to note that the 2 incompletions, however, came earlier in the season against Syracuse, and he was sacked in some mop-up duty against that abysmal game they had at State. The North Carolina Tar Heel leading rusher is 6 foot, 220-pound running back Omarion Hampton, who has rushed for 1,442 yards on 234 carries, 6.2 yards per carry, and 15 touchdowns. Omarion was named a first-team Walter Camp All-American and a second-team All-American on the AFCA Associated Press, ESPN, Fox Sports, Sports Illustrated, CBS Sports/247 Sports, and Sporting News list. So the guy's got all kinds of accolades this year. He ranks 4th in the country in rushing and yards per game with 120.17. 8th in touchdowns and 9th in the country with 19.5 carries per game. He currently ranks 3rd in Carolina history with 1,442 yards and 5th with his 15 touchdowns all time in a single season UNC football. He is a horse and an unstoppable force that runs downhill. If we could bottle up that Omarion Hampton spirit and place it into every UNC football player, we would have an army. Now, due to Tez Walker declaring for the NFL draft and opting out of the bowl game, we're going to go with the next man up, and that is my dude, 6'2", 210-pound junior wide receiver J.J. Jones, who had a terrific junior campaign this season. 658 yards on 42 receptions for 2 touchdowns. J.J. was the surprise breakout guy, according to a lot of people, but I've always thought he was capable of having a really good season and being a really good possession receiver. What I didn't see was how he was able to take the top off of defenses, especially before Tez was ruled eligible. JJ plays even bigger than he is, and I like the way that he attacks the football. He's a passionate guy, and it's something that we need more within the walls of the UNC football program. And we should really get a good look at the young receivers in this game as well. Aside from JJ, Carolina's top 5 receivers will miss this game due to opt-out or injury. The 7th guy, that's Omarion Hampton, our running back. 8 and 9, you ask? Kamari Morales and Tyshawn Chapman, both in the transfer portal, not playing in this game. So 4 of UNC's top 5 receivers and 8 out of UNC's top 10 receivers are not going to play in this bowl game. That's a ton of turnover. So with all that information in mind, let's look at Russ's 3 keys to this football game. Key number 1, simple, bro. Numbers in the box. West Virginia runs the football 63% of the time. Only 5 other teams in the country run the ball more. They're 3rd in the nation in rushing. West Virginia has 3 players that have rushed for at least 700 yards. It's what they do, man. And you have got to challenge your guys on the corners to hold their guys down. No bail. Mix and match, bump and run with the 5-yard cushion and make them throw the ball to the outside. You cannot let the Mountaineers run the football down your throat. Commit numbers to their strength. Challenge them to consistently beat you with their weakness. If it happens once, okay, tip your cap. Good job. And make them do it again. And don't panic if they hit 1 or 2. Make them consistently go away from what they want to do. And that starts with Gene Chizik making a concerted effort to stop the run, period. It's that stinking simple. You say it's not that simple. No, it is that simple. He needs the coach like his career's on the line. It is. Key number 2, run, O'Marion, run. Last game of the year, missing your starting quarterback and 8 out of 10 of your most productive receivers. Thank goodness we got an All-American in the backfield. Feed him. Heavy doses. And when he needs a spell, get British in there. Get Caleb Hood in there. Good night. Get Jordan Louis in there. Run the football. Make that defense come up to open up some passing lanes for your freshman quarterback so that he can make some plays later in said passing game. Run, O'Marion, run. And key number 3, it's time for the young guns. North Carolina has done a terrific job over the past couple of years recruiting of keeping that wide receiver cupboard stocked. With Tez Walker declaring for the draft and the injuries that have eaten up many of the starters, it's time for these young guns to shine. Everyone is super high on 6'1", 185-pound Chris Culliver, who had the big touchdown catch against Campbell from Conner, I might add. There's 6'2", 195-pound freshman Paul Billups II, Gavin Blackwell, Christian Hamilton, that are going to have a tremendous opportunity set before them to make a name for themselves going into next season. And I'm sure they've been receiving passes from Conner on the second team all season, so it should be a fairly seamless transition. Can these guys grow up quickly and challenge that West Virginia secondary? That's what remains to be seen. But we're going to need a spark in the passing game so that West Virginia doesn't just stack the box. Here's your chance, young guns. Let's make it happen, baby. And that leads us to Russ's score prediction. To preface the prediction, ESPN Analytics gives the North Carolina Tar Heels a 60.6% chance of winning, but they cannot possibly be factoring in all that North Carolina is going to be missing. The current line would probably be a much better indicator, and that the Mountaineers are -6.5 as of December 19th. It all culminates into this, Tar Heel Nation. 6-0 start. Number 10 in the country. College football playoff whispers. 2-4 down the stretch, including a loss at home to a terrible UVA team. Another disappointing trip to Atlanta, and a complete no-show in the most important football game of the year, NC State. When you couple how this North Carolina team has played since that win over Miami, not good. Even really in their wins against Campbell and Duke. with the fact that they're going to be missing their starting quarterback, 2 of their starting receivers, all of their tight ends, their starting center, their starting all-conference linebacker, a starting corner to the transfer portal. It's tough to have much hope in this football game, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. Not to mention that West Virginia, they're not missing anyone that's significant aside from the center. Do we have faith that UNC can stop the run of the 3rd best rushing team in the nation without our best linebacker, with Gene Chizik as the defensive coordinator? I've personally lost my ability to have faith in this coaching staff to make the seemingly no-brainer changes to even push back on what teams would like to do. It's almost like a complete lack of common sense, man. I'm going to keep it a buck with you guys. North Carolina is giving up a staggering 33.2 points per game in their last 6. You take away that Campbell game, let's just take away the 2 OTs in the Duke game, just for fairness sake. And Carolina is giving up 36.6 points per game in those 5. Yikes. Nothing has seemingly changed, boys. Now, I think that Conner is going to show some flashes. He'll make some plays, and I expect that we'll see some oohs and ahs. But if I were a betting man, I'm going to have to go with West Virginia's first team against Carolina's second team. And I'm obviously being slightly facetious here, but Carolina's missing too much, guys. West Virginia will crowd the line of scrimmage, and they'll attempt to take away the run. North Carolina will do what they do. They'll play it cautious and allow West Virginia to run the stinking football with no more than 7 in the box. We'll watch a slow death by 1,000 paper cuts again. Please, prove me wrong, Coach Mack. Please, Gene, show me that I am an absolute moron. Make me purchase my Duke's Mayo Bowl champion shirt, dude. I'm begging you. But I'm taking West Virginia in this one, 34-20. I think the sad question that I'm asking myself right now, does Carolina even show up and fight, man? After that NC State game and what they put on the field, dude, after seeing what they did against South Carolina a couple of years ago in this very same bowl, after all that they're losing, do my Tar Heels even come and fight, man? That is the sad question I'm asking myself. And because they continue to prove me wrong when I put my faith in them, maybe if I just lack whatever faith that maybe I should have, then they'll stink and prove me wrong again. We'll have an opposite effect. So let me know what you think down in the comment section. Tar Heel and Mountaineer Nation. Am I onto something? Or am I sitting down here at the edge of the pine with a clipboard looking clueless? If you haven't already, man, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and consider becoming a member of the Huddle Hooligans. Shout out to the Iron 7 who have helped me complete almost our first full football season and half of our first basketball season, as hopefully what comes to be known as the best Carolina fan channel on YouTube. Carlton Van Hoy, Scott Sheff, Preston from Greensboro, Lack Ragem, Coconuts and Grits, Elijah, and Dennis Hargrove. I love you guys, man. I'm always looking forward to Carolina football, man. I'm always looking forward to Carolina football, Tar Heel Nation. We'll see you on the 27th, baby. I'll catch you on the next one.